think no surprises to see Cabochard's signature Jace kind of taken away here.
Yeah, Jace on red side is almost always going to be banned. The Draven as well, when Vitality are on blue, is almost always taken away from Attila. It is his best performing champion in that bottom lane. So already seeing that SK want to remove some of these strong laning options from the side of Vitality, because that's usually where they're going to beat you in their games.
Absolutely. Renekton going to follow as well, so seeing a lot more attention, of course, Renekton. While these are both champions that Cabochard has played, they're also just very strong champions in the meta, as you've already mentioned. The interesting one to me is, of course, the Nocturne. I guess trying to limit some of those really strong level 6 champions that Selfmade does like to pull out.
Yeah, I mean, the Nocturne is a champion Selfmade likes, but I don't want to see him on one of these hard farm to 6 junglers. I don't want him on the Karthus or the Nocturne. I want to see him on a Lee Sin or a Gragas or even a Sejuani, something that can make plays early on, because when SK Gaming are at their most successful, it is through early game playmaking from Selfmade, and sometimes they draft themselves into a position where he can't actually go for those early moves.
See what the option will be. Will they prioritize his pool early, or will they let it wait till past the second ban phase? Of course, in the meantime, the Lucian has been locked in by the side of Vitality, giving some of that priority over to Attila on the bottom side of the map. And now the Thresh and the Lissandra going to follow. Thresh, of course, very strong support on the bottom side of the map, and Lissandra, I think, just generally a safe pick.
Yeah, and these two champions are two major comfort picks for Pyrian and Dream, some of their most played champions, and also just strong in terms of getting picks, in terms of making plays. I really like the direction SK has gone for the draft, but there was one pick we saw hovered for a moment, and that's the Akali. I really believe that Jizuke is going to want to take that champion again. After seeing some buffs on this patch, its win rate skyrocketed in solo queue, and I think it's one of those options, one of those melee mid laners that Jizuke always tends to gravitate towards whenever he can.
And see if they want to show their hand there in the mid lane, or if they'll save it for later. Of course, on blue side, they don't have the luxury of that last pick of guaranteeing themselves a comfortable matchup for each one of their solo laners. So at some point, they will have to blind pick, but they will pick the Ryze into the Lissandra for the mid lane. Could still be flexed to the hand to Cabochard, but anytime, I mean, you see Ryze, you think Jizuke. That's just how it works.
You absolutely do, and I think that Vitality actually got 3 really strong picks, while SK have definitely gone the comfort route. As you see, they lock in the Jinx as well, so that hyper-scaling AD carry for a crown shot. You can't help but feel that Vitality have the strongest AD carry on the patch with the Lucian. You have the strongest flex pick on the patch with the Jarvan that can go either jungle or top lane, and we know just how dominant Jizuke's Ryze can be, so I think Vitality are already off to a very good start here.
Pyrian, though, under a lot of pressure already, as you mentioned, going Lissandra into the Ryze. Difficult to go toe-to-toe with Jizuke under any circumstance, but I feel like he has been an unsung hero in some of these wins coming in from the side of SK Gaming, so if there's ever a time to step up, it is most certainly now. Final game for both these teams in the regular season, short of any tiebreakers. Aatrox now banned away as well, so limiting some of the options for Warlib on the top side, as well as some of those jungle flex picks from red side.
Now, because Vitality decided to pick up, you know, that Jarvan as well as the Ryze and not go for a support, this gives room for SK to ban away champions like the Braum. I was maybe thinking an Alistar ban could follow that one up here. It's a very strong 2v2 pairing alongside the Lucian, but something that we have seen a whole lot of here in the LEC is the Jarvan top with Elise in the jungle. It's a very strong top side of the map, so SK want to remove that option and maybe force Mowgli to take his turn on the Jarvan himself.
Absolutely fair, and of course, very different story. Mowgli on Jarvan has been very mixed bag, some incredible games, some really bad games, whereas the Elise, while it has suffered a bit in the early games, has also led to some very explosive plays. See what SK want to take here. Of course, have the luxury of last pick, but they do have to make at least one more blind pick. They're not going to save jungler for the end. They will get the Rek'Sai now locked in for Selfmade. And Ender, this is exactly what you wanted to see. This is a champion that can make plays before that level 6 point.
Oh, I absolutely love it here for Selfmade, because not only do you have very strong dueling in the early game, because you are this Rek'Sai and usually go for something like the Conqueror as well, but you also just have very strong early game ganking, and you can play around a lane like the mid lane with the Lissandra, or even topside, which we know Selfmade enjoys to go for quite a bit. So I'm definitely going to have my eyes on him and where he can impact the map early on to set his team up.
Where you should set attention, we're going to have to wait and see, but for now it will be the Galio locked in support going to be backing up Attila on the bottom side of the map at the final pick here, revealing where the Jarvan will go and what the option is going to be for Vitality, giving SK the luxury of the last pick of the draft to counter whatever Vitality can bring to the table, and it is the Lee Sin in the hands of Mowgli. You wanted active junglers in the hands of Selfmade, you're going to get active junglers on both sides here, Ender. Lee Sin versus Rek'Sai matchup. Talk to me about it.
Oh, well, it's a little bit of an interesting one because I think what Elisa's going to bring to the table is not necessarily the 1v1 against the Rek'Sai, but very strong ganking around lanes with heavy CC. And right now he has 3 lanes that he can work around, so that's going to be very exciting. Whereas I think that Selfmade maybe has to work a little bit harder.
Baby.
Oh,
Whirlip Jax.
That's a throwback if I've ever seen one.
In the LEC. I love it. I absolutely love it. This is the biggest Season 3 nostalgia pick I've seen.
Yeah, I literally remember sitting in front of my computer screen 5 years ago watching Whirlib play his signature Jax pick. This is absolutely fantastic, and it's also a classic counter here up against the Jarvan, because Jarvan brings heavy laning strength to the table, but this Jax is going to heavily outscale in the side lane.
And now we see the scaling components, double scaling components now for the side of SK. You talk about pretty solid lane, good scaling. They've got the Jinx as well. May suffer in the laning phase, but it does feel like Vitality on a clock to a certain degree with this composition, going up against 2 very strong scaling threats and a lot of frontline, a lot of tools to keep picks like that Jinx safe. Ooh, Ender. I love that both these junglers have the ability to pop off in the early game, to set their teams up for success. And I also like that Vitality are kind of not 100% forced on a clock, because of course Ryze scaling is definitely crazy. Their team fight setup is also fantastic on the side of Vitality, but in terms of raw scaling, I like that there's potential for that late game mismatch or comebacks, even if Vitality can find that strong early game.
Yeah, there definitely is room here for SK to play the long game, but I think that if you are a Vitality fan coming into this game, your criticism from yesterday was you didn't have the tools to force fights, to force plays, and Vitality, they took that criticism into account. They have a Lee Sin, a Jarvan, and a Galio to get things going here and just ram it down here in the mid game.
Yeah, it's so terrifying. I mean, if they do find that lead, they could extend it. Not today, though. All right, SK fan out there repping for the team. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our match of the day. It is, of course, Vitality versus SK Gaming. Tiebreakers are the name of the game for both these teams, trying to secure that spot towards the top of the standings, or rather in the playoffs, and in Vitality's case, forcing that second place tiebreaker later in the day, pending some further results. But regardless, it does end for them in that race for second if they cannot find a win here. So definitely high stakes on both sides. And the return to Whirlip Jax, of course, I think 21 games all time, 15 wins. So pretty.
It's a pick that works for Whirlip.
It's a pick that works for Whirlip.
Like back in the day, he would, like, Jax wasn't a pick that you saw in the top lane, but Whirlip, just with the reputation on this champion, drew bans consistently for that champion. It was actually a big strength of him back in the day, and to see him recognize a matchup where he can outscale, where he can have a heavy impact in the side lane, and decide the last game of the regular season, the game that could send SK to playoffs or knock them out entirely, this is the time for his Jax.
Does opt start with a stun there, trading Cabochard. Goes for the shield and the slow. Going to be interesting to see how this matchup plays out. Of course, Grasp on one side versus the Conqueror. And I think no surprise to see that Cabo probably doesn't want to be the guy to extend these trades and get to 5 stacks on Conqueror. Would much rather go for the safer, healthier trades.
Yeah, now one strong thing about the Jarvan in terms of the laning phase is just the range he sort of brings to the table. He actually has a relatively high base auto attack range. I think he's sitting at 175 when most melee champs are at 125, but he also can just poke with the Q inside of the lane. It gives him some armor shred as well, so Cabochard has some tools here to try and work Whirlip down in HP to maybe set up for a gank.
Interesting now, though, the next piece of the puzzle, if we think top lane is going to be important, is taking a look at the junglers. Mowgli's opted to go straight from his red buff to topside Scuttle Crab. Now could look for an invade there, does opt to step back, could head to the top side as well. Rek'Sai taking a much safer path, level 2 there for both top laners. It looks like he will just move in to clear his own jungle. So not going to see anything more aggressive. Selfmade, of course, taking that path that personally I love to see Ender, that quick level 3.
Yeah, of course, whenever you work your Krugs into your first clear, you can hit level 3 off of just 3 camps as opposed to the typical 4 it takes ever since the jungle nerfs of 2018. A lot of people still complaining about those, but champions like the Rek'Sai, they can go for the early Krugs, make it work, as here we go.
To get locked up, the cleanse, the flash forward. Jizuke now in trouble, has to flash out himself, but he's flashing into enemy territory here, out of mana as well. The Corrupting Potion ticking, he's running for his life. The slows are there, the Prey Seeker, he's burning down Corrupting Potion, the auto, Burst Blood for SK.
Really really nice play around the mid lane right there. And it's these moves on the Rek'Sai coming from creative pathways that you just do not expect. And now Jizuke going to be out of a flash and out of a cleanse means he's going to have to give a whole lot more respect here in the middle lane, because this might just happen again. And see the setup. It's Pyrion that forces the cleanse, and Jizuke not quick enough to pull the trigger on the flash, doesn't have the mana, so his last bet was going to be this phase rush and hoping that Mowgli could get over close enough to him, but Pyrion recognizes that, flashes forward, and finishes him off.
And just such an awkward time to back as well. You can see the Dark Seal and the Fairy Charm. Of course, no TP for the Rise as well. Forced to take Cleanse in this Lissandra matchup. So being put behind, really unfortunate. Lissandra not the best duelist, but we'll be able to now start to push out this lane a little bit more. And as we check in on the bottom side of the map, despite some of the individual strengths of you know, starting fights and the damage outpost from Illusion, still difficult, I think, to approach both a Thresh and a Jinx in this laning phase.
Yeah, I believe Crownshot and Dream sort of got down into this bottom lane first, so they were able to build up a little bit of a push going on in. Still, you don't expect to see the Lucian falling down even remotely in terms of CS early on, especially when paired with the Galio, which we usually consider to have a pretty strong laning phase because of his ability to push waves with his Q as well as his passive, and the immediate CC he can sort of bring to the table. So let's keep our eyes on this matchup as it goes in.
He's going to get the setup, the knockup as well. Coming in, Mowgli is just waiting in the wings, trying to find a way forward, but will now back off. SK disengaging, but both summoners now burn for Crown Shot.
Yeah, Jack Troll also using his flash, though, so it might be difficult to try and repeat that gank. Attila also using the heal as well, I think, to try and get Jack Troll into range. That being said, with Mowgli jungling around this bottom side, I wonder if Vitality are going to try to force Crown Shot off of this tower and deny him all these minions.
That's going to be a good spot. See if we can get anything. Not even going to be able to throw out the Zap or the cannon if Jack Troll wants to step forward to try to block it. Can't get the cannon either, and now they get a tower plate too. Oh, that's a difficult spot to start the game.
And you can see, you wonder maybe why does SK walk back as a duo lane, but they were actually waiting for their minion line to come in, because as soon as you have the minions, you have some tools to try to block skill shots like the Q coming in from the Lee Sin. It gives you a little bit more protection underneath this tower. So even though they didn't have self-made in the area, knowing they had the minion line to give them that extra cover, they were able to come back in and recover some minions.
Good to play intelligently around it. Obviously could have turned into a much larger deficit, but now we see a repeat gank in the mid lane. Jizuke very much in trouble. Sonic Wave is going to connect. Now Selfmade going in, but immediately gets knocked up. Mowgli, rather. Selfmade going to find the disengage. Whirl ready to flash forward. Gets the stun. Mowgli still alive. Ooh. Just barely. The Ice Shard does not connect as Jizuke body blocks. Almost killed his jungler there by stepping forward to get hit by that one. But Mowgli just out of range.
A super close play there from Whirlib, trying to flash on in and get the kill. And you can see a little bit of the Rek'Sai versus Lee Sin matchup where Mowgli tries to go in on the Q. Selfmade can knock him up and cancel out the damage from coming in. So almost was deadly there for Mowgli, who's trying to give some protection here towards Jizuke. And luckily for Vitality, I think Jizuke has managed to remain roughly even in terms of CS, but you can see he's constantly being pressured underneath the tower. He has no mana left whatsoever. So if Jack Troll is going to enter this lane, it's not for a gank, it's just to push out the wave.
It's also, let's talk a little bit about jungle difference here, because you see 42 CS on that Rek'Sai. That is 30 just about on Mowgli. That is a level 4 Lee Sin to a level 6 Rek'Sai. This is domination in the jungle.
And Selfmade went Hail of Blades. I've been waiting for this. I think ever since the Conqueror nerfs, Hail of Blades has gotten so much better. And the reason for it is your early game ganking. You can rapidly stack your Fury on this Rek'Sai pick, so you can look for the early kill. That's why they got more burst damage down when they looked for Jizuke right at the start of the game. So it's something that I think, especially in solo queue, when you're looking for a lot of early game ganks, Rek'Sai players should be seriously considering.
Well, and with the Conqueror nerfs, of course, just a much easier decision than it once was. Obviously, when Conqueror first came out, just, I think, a little too strong to be ignored. So they're going to try to clear this one. Mowgli could try to steal it away, though. Has to be careful. Flay is there from the Fresh to back it up. Is he going to Q in? No, he's just going to step back. TP now coming in as well. Jack Troll's going to die, too. SK are destroying in this early game. They get the Drake, they get another kill, and just everything is going in their favor.
I mean, it was just a really awkward approach there from Vitality, where Mowgli tries to get into the pit, but because he doesn't have the flash, he's not confident enough to try and contest the steal and look for a smite. And then Jack Troll, I'm not really sure why he's trying to walk in towards the river. Seems like some split decision-making from Vitality, where Jack Troll is thinking maybe we're going for a fight, and SK said, no, we're just going to kill you and get the dragon on top.
And just everything going in the favor of SK. Crown Shot now farming much more comfortably. You know, when you see an early priority pick like the Lucian, I think you expected to do a little bit better here, as well as the Lee Sin. We saw the Rek'Sai, Ender. They opted for the Lee Sin as an answer, and now it's getting nothing done.
Yeah, it really is. And to be fair, there's very few answers to Rek'Sai in terms of early game pressure. So now, after we've seen Selfmade get that first blood around the mid lane, it's very hard for Mowgli to ever contest around the map because you lose the 2v2 top side, you lose the 2v2 in the mid lane, 3v3 bottom lane maybe can go your way, but again, you have to be very cautious because Pyrion will always have the push in mid lane, so your ganks have to be decisive and quick.
They saw him on the control ward. Mowgli goes for the camp anyway.
Hail of Blades, baby.
Stop with your Hail of Blades versus Conqueror, Ender. We get it. You were right. Now the bot lane, though, in trouble as Jacktroll walks forward. Attila was locked up. The point comes out. It's too little, too late. This is a slaughter. Comfort picks for SK. We were skeptical, but everything now coming together for this team. Top lane, of course, the only point where things aren't going quite as expected. Cabo doing a very good job in the matchup, but Jizuke now has to run for his life. Has the cleanse, has the flash available. The Phase Rush now procced on the retreat. And ulti now coming in. Needs to backstep, but can't really afford to. Does manage to make it out. Beautiful footwork there. Prey Seeker comes in. Mowgli is level 5. What are you going to do? You don't have a kick. You don't have anything. You're just next on the menu, Mowgli. Why would you step forward? In the end, buys time for his mid laner, but Jizuke is dead too.
It's 9.5 minutes in the game, and they're diving tier 2 towers, Dracos. What's going on?
Well, I mean, you can see it's a 3K gold lead, Ender. This is a massacre. Jacktroll can try to get something back here, but the tunnel is available, so Rek'Sai steps out, and Ender, when we look at yesterday, yeah, Vitality were pretty close, but it was not... Oh, we'll talk about it in a second. Run me through this play.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't getting smashed in the early game, right? Now, see how SK go for this play, because Selfmade lands the Q, which lets him pop the ultimate here. And then, okay, we're going to have to pause, because Attila had to use his heal, Jacktroll had to use his flash. SK continued to dominate. But actually, if we think about how the rest of that play worked out, Jizuke greeted on his flash, so he had to use his cleanse as well. Mowgli just sort of ran it down, was like, I'm going to try to save you, but I'm going to die for it. And both he and his mid laner went down as well, so it's just a horrible series of events here for Vitality, who now find themselves down 4,000 gold.
And really difficult. And yesterday we talked about how good the second half of the split has been for Vitality, how dominant they've been in the early game, building these big gold leads. But then we look at yesterday's game, Ender, and it was actually surprisingly close. Of course, we look back on it, we're like, wow, look at all those kills, look how active they were. But they didn't build a lead with those solo laners. And if you watched the game yesterday, you saw how quickly it fell apart for this team. That was in a pretty close to even game, Ender. This game, on the other hand, update for those of you at home, still a slaughter, still 6-0 in the kill score, still a Jinx scaling up, a Jax scaling up, and yes, Cabochard has a lead, but he can't get anything out of it because the rest of his map is falling apart.
Yeah, and if you want to point to one thing that sort of tells you how this game is going, it's the fact that Crown Shot actually was sitting on an Infinity Edge. Attila just finished his Blade of the Ruined King, but he was sitting on a Cutlass for a long, long time. It just goes to show how well SK have done, because not only has Selfmade had a massive impact around this mid lane especially, but also just in the 2 versus 2, Crown Shot and Dreams are winning and have 3 turret plates already.
Oh, Vitality, though, smart plays to try to force themselves back into the game. They're going to go for the lane swap, trying to play to that strong lane. Jax may find himself in trouble if Warlord wants to stay on the top side, but it looks like they are ready to give this one up. Securing the Rift Herald is huge here, though. If Mowgli goes down on this one, it's going to be pretty doomed, because that is Crown Shot getting more and more solo good. Another 160. Looks like he's going to grab another 160 and a little more into his back pocket.
And now Crown Shot is pushing bottom lane. The rest of SK is actually making the move up here. They want to contest this Rift Herald. You even have Dreams in the mid lane as well.
Though, does find a good chunk of burst damage. It looks like this one will go down uncontested. SK respecting the potential for the Rise to burst down. Jizuke finding a kill here could be a big deal, but Crown Shot, this man is on a mission. He is going to auto-attack towers. He is not here to fight champions. And I don't know if TPing into this guy is the best idea. Luckily, it's Cabo, very strong member of the team. And now the Herald will be used topside. So Vitality are trading back. They are coming back into this game to a certain degree, but still a 4K gold lead in favor of SK. Only 12.5 minutes into the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vitality have sort of played this situation well. It's the best they could have gotten for what they paid. But now, oh, Jizuke barely dodged away from that, and SK still might want the tower, maybe even the dive.
Cabo's here as well. Tower will fall. Fresh Lantern for the retreat. Mowgli finally passed the level 6 threshold. Still does not have his Warrior enchantment. And of course, only falling further behind in terms of individual CS. You can see bounties on the head of Rek'Sai as well as the Lysandra, and I think no surprises when you see the goal differences between them and their relative opponents. Yeah, 2.5K in jungle, Ender. That is just a crazy difference.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. I mean, Selfmade with a 700 gold bounty currently. Well, newsflash, not all of that is just from the kills. He's also just built up a massive CS differential with him over Mowgli, and you sort of have to ask yourself, like, what can Vitality do in this type of a situation? Because, you know, bottom lane was supposed to be a big advantage for them. Lucian's supposed to win on 1 item, on 2 items. Maybe at 3 items is where the Jinx starts to take over. So actually this window of power that Attila was supposed to be having, not only does he not have a lead, but it just means that that advantage, that window is just shrinking and shrinking as Crown Shot continues to narrow in on that 3rd crit item.
Does get closer, and the consistency for Crown Shot was a question mark, but it's good to see him actually come out with this performance where he is strong in the early game. He is making kind of the difference here. He's punishing some of the more aggressive plays from the Vitality bot lane. See his games yesterday, of course, actually quite impressive. Despite the struggles of the team, Crown Shot was probably the strongest individual contributor, did misstep in a few team fights, but outside of that was an incredible individual performer and is now set up to do so once again, not the Tristana this time, but the Jinx instead. And having this kind of advantage early on just makes it feel like a pretty easy game, to be honest, if you're the Jinx. You're not quite as scared of the Rise or the Jarvan diving onto you, knowing that you're actually ahead of the clock in items. Yeah,
I mean, you have to think that SK are in a very comfortable position right now, because not only do you have the advantage when it comes in terms of the scaling of your AD carry, so I think the front-to-back team fight looks pretty good here for SK, but you also know that Werlib is going to be outscaling in the side lane over that Jarvan pick, so SK have a lot of tools to continue to work with, and you don't expect teams that draft more for, you know, a split push or, you know, a hyper carry AD carry to be able to build up this type of a lead in the early game, and credit really has to go down to Selfmade with his ability to sort of build that one up.
And it was. Once again, this is the guy that we kind of look at to be rookie the split. There were other people that were contesting him earlier on, and a lot of them have fallen to the wayside. Certain other names have risen up. Nemesis and Humanoid obviously looking much better in the second half of the split, but overall, this guy feels like one of the strongest individual contributors to SK's overall success. And it's only recently that we've seen the other members really rise up around him in a lot of these games.
It's true, and we'll have to sort of keep our eyes on Selfmade as the game moves forward, because one of the biggest weaknesses of Rek'Sai as a champion is just your ability to impact during the team fights, because ever since changes, you know, a long time ago that made it so you could only actually knock up 1 target, it meant your utility went way, way down. She's very strong in sort of those 1v1s, those isolated fights, but as soon as you get into a team fight, it gets much more difficult. So there are some things working against SK in terms of the 5 versus 5, but Selfmade has such a lead right now that he will still pose a big threat onto the Vitality backline if he can sort of access that.
We'll have to find those avenues for now, though, focusing on the tower, knowing that this 2-man unit is strong enough to pretty much kill anyone. Of course, the 2 strongest individual members on the map in terms of just raw advantage. So just kind of forcing their lead down Vitality's throat, just moving down that side lane, taking down that tower. A little past, or a little below half health, and it's going to make it much easier if they are able to put Werlib on the side lane in the future for him to just take that one off the map.
Yeah, so if Vitality are going to make some plays to try to get back into the game, because we know, you think about the Vitality of 2018, it was like, look, even if we are at a deficit, we're just going to sort of run at your face and try to kill you in the 5 versus 5. They do have the tools to initiate. You have the Jarvan pick, you have the Galley to sort of follow up on that, so I'd like to see Vitality take control over some pockets of vision around their own jungle, and then try to punish SK, because right now SK are splitting the map very effectively. They're getting chip damage on a lot of these inner turrets, but they are splitting up, and that means that Vitality do have an option if they can, abuse some lack of vision from SK's side to try to force a fight with a numbers advantage.
And for SK, of course, winning here very important. It does force the tiebreaker, but winning here, winning the tiebreaker, obviously great news, but we also kind of want to see if this team is ready for best of 5, and I think part of being ready for best of 5 is closing out games with confidence. And Vitality is a notoriously difficult team to close out against in a lot of circumstances because they are creative, because often they do find those pockets of vision ender or those crazy backdoors or these big opportunities where often other teams just can't find a way back in. So right now, SK 100% in the lead, but longer this game goes, the more chances you give for Vitality to find some avenue back.
It's true. Things like the Jizuke split push on the rise, you always have to keep in the back of your mind. But we talk about this game like, you know, the clock is really ticking, but SK, it's just 18 minutes in, you know, they're going to pick up their third Drake of the game, very likely going to be uncontested from Vitality, and they can sort of wait because Baron Nashor hasn't even spawned onto the Rift yet. They do have time before these very crucial objectives come up, but if they can just find a pick inside of Vitality's own jungle, it probably doesn't even matter if you get the Baron.
Ooh, spotted out there with the Sonic Wave. And you're absolutely right, Ender. And of course, the largest lead that, or deficit that Vitality have ever come back from was against Splice. Just over 3,000, so this one, much bigger. Much bigger, Ender. But now, of course, the thing about snowballing this quickly is I always feels like it's difficult to do anything else, right? In solo queue, you're hoping for a surrender vote. Here, now you just got to run, because apparently World is going to just try to take down your Rise. The kickback needs to come out to stop any further play from happening. Rocket comes in as well, so Jizuke now immediately going to get ulted out by the Rek'Sai here, and the flash comes in.
You can't flash that!
It's in the patch notes!
Oh!
Hook comes in, Dreams goes down. This is destruction, Ender.
This is just not even close. SK up 8-0 currently. They have the minions in the top lane as well. They can try to take yet another turret away from Vitality. And it's after Vitality tried to punish Warlib walking into two people. But SK were so immediate on the call. They TP in Period, and Selfmade is there on the collapse to punish.
All right, normally, Ender, we leave room for hope. We leave room for a potential comeback, but it's too late. It's a 7K gold lead at 20 minutes. It needs a miracle for Vitality fans, and people who generally might want to avoid tiebreakers. Maybe this is that miracle. Does not look like it. When it happens, I'll let you know. Until then, this looks like SK are going to continue dominating. Cabochard now trying to force the play. Galio coming in. Lisandro just walks away, takes a kill out in the process. Warlib now can't be auto-attacked, but they go right into this melee. Crownshot just getting free autos. Mowgli next on the menu, gets 3 seconds, gets excited, gets one more. Jizuke next on the list. Kills left and right, and SK are obliterating him. Oh, Attila, talk that big game. I don't know if it's going to come true. Double kill. Pops the cork on him.
Look, Dracos, I'm just being realistic. SK are the better team on the day.
Absolutely. This game was absolute destruction. If they win in 30 seconds, they get the shortest game. They're going to do it. Oh, Ender. Just hit the Nexus, boys. I cannot believe it. Ender. Shortest game in LEC history if they get it right here. Oh, they did it! And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is SK forcing the tiebreaker with Schalke No Fear for that last playoff spot. They are one game away in their first split back in the LEC from finding themselves in the playoffs.
And if there's one word I can use to describe that performance from SK, it is class. From the first minute of the game, Selfmade took over. In tough lane matchups, they won. And SK, with the shortest game time in LEC history, make it look easy.
And I kept looking. We kept scraping. We're like, hey, maybe this is the way. Maybe this is how it's going to happen. Maybe Vitality can come back here. Because they're just the expected. You look at the standings that higher up, you expect them to find these avenues, but no. SK did not give them a single opportunity to come back. Outplayed it every turn. And even the one lane that looked good, Cabochard, you know, getting that CS advantage, looking strong individually. It just couldn't turn any. You're still against a Jax. He gets that Trinity Force, and what do? Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And now imagine Schalke watching this game from SK. SK just dominated a team that was fighting for second place in the entire league. They're coming in off of so much momentum from this win. This team is not one to be taken lightly.
Absolutely not. And for most of the season, we're like, ooh, Attila versus Upset. Now it's Upset versus Crownshot. And that, my friend, is going to be incredibly exciting. And of course, now with this win, as I'll do my due diligence and fold the foldy sheet, if that game had gone in the favor of Vitality, ladies and gentlemen, we would have had only one tiebreaker. Could have been a variety of different things, but it would have been one tiebreaker. Now with SK winning, we have up to 3. Ender, a lot of crazy scenarios coming through the day. Of course, reminder, you can find your foldy sheet online. /foldy sheet.
/foldy sheet?
I don't remember the
I don't
full
think
URL.
that's a URL.
Don't put the pressure on me. Check Twitter check social media, check LOL Esports. That's eu.lolesports.com/FoldySheet. That's
Nailed it. I think if you type /Foldius, you actually get a different special
you can't
one.
tell them about the special bonus one.
My bad.
They gotta find it themselves, or
bad,
Betty can
guys.
just ruin it by linking on Twitter. You never know. You know, stuff happens. Regardless, a truly fantastic game coming in from SK. Once again, Foldy Sheet. Our match of the day, though, Selfmade, Pyrian, and Crownshot are your candidates for Kia Player of the Game. You can, of course, head over to @LOL Esports on Twitter and vote. Who's it going to be, Ender?
Oh, my. Selfmade.
Yeah, Selfmade.
Yeah.
Bam.
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 Halo
and with G2 losing,
Rek'Sai.
this man might win. I think he's going to win the whole
He
Player of
could
the Game
win it.
vote. Oh, he might be #1. Well, to get more insight on SK's win, let's hear from our analysts.
Thank you very much. The hardest part about these Foldy sheets is actually folding them on the line as they get smaller. I guess
you scissors.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that, but I prefer the hard way.
The cutty sheet.
Yeah, in any case, these are possibilities that are still left, but what is more important, the fact that we will for sure have a tiebreaker game. But I smacked myself in the face with that.
Are you serious?
Between Schalke 04 and SK Gaming, and I don't want to make this too much of a funny side note. Let us acknowledge the fact that I just slapped that piece of paper very hard.
Let's acknowledge the fact that
camera.
SK just had the fastest game of the LEC split. Saved it right there for you.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Congratulations to SK Gaming for showing up when we wanted them to show up. And what is even more impressive is that they took comfort across the board. I'm a bit surprised by the Rek'Sai. You said you were expecting Selfmade maybe to go for a Kha'Zix or a Lee or something insanely aggressive, but he still managed to make it work on Rek'Sai as well.
I mean, obviously the pick was good. What I didn't really understand is why would you pick Lee Sin into Rek'Sai when it's the highest counter? Also, Java into Rek'Sai is not good, so putting Java in top lane is fine, but putting Lee Sin in the jungle versus Rek'Sai doesn't make any sense for me.
And what's interesting is you're very calm right now. You're very controlled.
Yeah,
I would expect you to be like so overjoyed and
these
so
guys.
happy.
I mean, the plan keeps going. The plan for having 3 tie breaks
Is that what you
still
want?
up. Of course. That's
Yeah,
what League
but
of
you're
Legends
going
want.
home, you can't
That's
even
not
watch
every
them.
single fan want to see, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But let's talk a bit more about this game. I know you're taunting us right now. In any case, let's then talk about the Vitality draft.
Yeah, because that's what I wanted to point out. It wasn't just that SK, got the comfort picks. You got to see Werlib on his signature pick of Jax after he had so many bans leverage against him in the top lane. It's the fact that they kicked the crap out of Vitality when Vitality got also comfort across the board. That's Mowgli's Lee Sin. He's like world renowned for that champion. This is Cabo Shard on Jarvan, who's just been smurfing on people. That's Jizuke's Rise. Everything was given to Vitality, and they just fell over. Like, it looked like they were just watching themselves lose the game.
And what was also very impressive is that they did it exactly in the way that we said that they would. Selfmade, the man that has been carrying this team, honestly, for most of the games of SK, he puts on his carry pants. Let's take a look at how they exactly beat the crap out of Vitality. Well, it was Selfmade, front and center, setting everything up for his team.
I mean, Selfmade was definitely the beneficiary of a lot of these kills, and I definitely don't want to take anything away from him, but Pyrian also had an incredible game, and for me, it was the tandem of Pyrian and Selfmade. We kept saying over the course of the split that SK Gaming need to be more than just the Selfmade show. They need to be more than just the Mad Lions, and with the evolution of how they plugged Pyrian into them, prioritizing Lissandra, moving together with Selfmade all the time, this is the final form of SK Gaming that we need going into playoffs.
I mean, I know Selfmade a lot, and Selfmade is the kind of player who needs mid-prio. How to get mid-prio when you have a Lissandra is pretty easy to get it. Lissandra will push all the time, and also, if the enemy champion tries to push into Lissandra, you can always gank the lane. And it's a free kill by the man of CC Lissandra brings on. So it's actually a really good champion for Pyrian, and actually Pyrian is playing him really okay. Lissandra. So actually leaving Lissandra to SK when he's one of the most ridiculous, strongest champion right now in the mid lane. And it's actually really good for Pyrian. It's questionable from Vitality.
Yeah, wonderful. And also the game plan really played into some of Vitality's weaknesses. I've had it checked, and at the 8 times that they have been in a deficit at 15 minutes across the split, they have lost 6 of those games. Vitality has a problem. They cannot play from behind. And if that was so much in the game plan or not of SK, they just wanted to win, right? But they had nothing to do, and we saw it here as well. But also, we have to congratulate SK on just choking Vitality out. They didn't do what Fnatic did yesterday with a 6K lead. No, they kept pushing.
But it's also because Vitality kind of ran into the meat grinder. Yes, SK made sure that they put the pedal to the metal, that they constantly were exactly where they needed to be, but Vitality just do not know they do not change their play style whether they are ahead or behind. They do the exact same thing every single time. And when they're ahead, it's how they snowball so effectively. But they really need to take a hard look that when their jungler does fall behind, when they cannot play Mowgli as a battle ward or as a carnivorous jungler, what the game plan then turns into.
I do want to refer to a tweet that Amazing sent out during the game. He said it as an observation. Teams like G2 and Vitality, and in lesser degree also Schalke, who usually have won by going very aggressive, after the crit changes, they are not doing as well at all. And the teams that are as controlled and play as a team, of course, SK now kind of rolled over them as well, but like an Origin, seem to have a better grasp on how to win the games at this point in time. What do you guys think?
I mean, I wanted to say that because that three team, especially G2, Vitality, and Schalke, are having a really rough time right now. They're losing so many games they should not be losing. G2 is performing not really well, not only from Mikey X, also, I mean, with Mikey X and with Promiscu, they are not getting the wins they were getting at the start of the split. And Vitality the same. Vitality ended this week 0-2. And they also lost 2 times versus SK. So obviously they are not performing as good as you expect this team to perform.
I think it's almost like because the draft is as open as it's ever been, especially with Silas also being disabled, because you're not just seeing this in the LEC, you're seeing this in the LPL, you're seeing it in the LCK. Teams like Griffin are also starting to drop games, and I don't think it's necessarily a question of patch, but of champion pools that kind of have changed with the patch, that you can no longer just get as many flex picks or as many power picks as before and then be rewarded for having superior players and playing a skirmish style. Now there is more versatility and viability in playing team fight compositions like this, or more 5v5 comps, even though this game was decided on skirmishes, which is why you're starting to see Vitality and G2 slip back a little bit. They're no longer as empowered by the patch.
So if you'd have to make a projection for the playoffs, do you think it will be dominated by more team fight heavy comps and teams that are the best at this, or?
I think team fight heavy comps are actually good, but I think what they're excelling right now is the early game pre-plan. Like we see from SK, level 3, level 4, gang mid lane, get the first blood. After that, Cellmate using baiting and playing really proactive. It was the same with Fnatic. Fnatic had the same plan yesterday, where from level 1, they will try to invade, try to get a kill, or try to get a flash from perks, and then just keep the constant aggression into them. So I think it will more excel the early game comps, where you actually know what to do in early game and early game pre-plans, more than team fights.
Yeah, even just to extend that idea, even Splice themselves, they're constantly keeping wards on enemy team Krug camp. They're constantly choking out through the jungle. So even though it's not translating into flashy first bloods, all of our teams that are doing right now do have plans that start at level 1 or start very early on in the game.
And now I want to look ahead a little bit, maybe in the near future. Of course, SK is going to be playing that tiebreaker versus Schalke 04. We'll have some time to talk about it before that. But what are your first kind of instincts going into that one later?
Lissandra. Both Schalke and SK really want the champion. Arne and I just talked about how much Lissandra gives free priority of. It's very important to both these junglers. But the honest thing that we need to talk about is that like SK's trajectory is like this, and Schalke's trajectory is still like this.
Like little.
I mean, watching other regions like LCK and LPL, you can see how much prio Lissandra has there. And another champion that has insane prio on Asia is Zoe, and he's the only champion we don't really see that much prio in Europe. But in LPL and LCK, it has insane prio. But Lissandra is just
I
so
don't see it
overpowered.
between SK and Schalke necessarily, but we have seen it also.
Yeah, and even in this game, I think that the Nocturne ban, because you knew that they were going to grab the Lissandra, was actually to open up the possibility of a Zoe, because Nocturne is so good into Zoe. So I was thinking Jizuke, he knows that they're going to grab Lissandra, they'll leave it open, it'll be a perfect trap for Zoe. And I was so shocked that Vitality took a right-hand turn and grabbed the Rise.
They did. In the end, though, as we look forward to that SK Schalke game, I also want to take a moment to look forward to Vitality in the playoffs. I think they've lost a lot of steam, and I was personally very excited about what kind of Vitality we were going to see in the first couple of weeks. That you know, manifested itself. They were very good. They were in the top of the standings, but now they're most likely going to miss out on that top 2 spot, maybe top 3. And I feel like they have a lot to work on going into the next week.
I think, as Attila will say, it's realistic that they have to work on this, because they are not performing as well as you expected them to perform. They are not doing early game pre-plans, and so many games, as you already said, Sox, they are dropping games at minute 15 already. They are so behind minute 15 that they don't even know how to catch up the game.
I think that if you want to beat Vitality easy mode right now, is to make sure that you have abundance of hard engage. So things like Lissandra, like a Sejuani, like a Jarvan, because Vitality constantly want to spec into a 1-3-1, and they don't organize themselves appropriately to do it. Someone is always exposed, even for the slimmest margin, and if you have the hard engage, it's normally Attila and Jack Troll, you can catch them out, you can punish them. And that's what's constantly happening, is that someone on Vitality is caught out as they're setting up their lane assignments, and then everything folds around them.
Yeah, everything falls apart. Something to work on for Yamato and his crew. But to wrap up this game, the Kia player of the game was Self-Made with 85% of the votes. I don't think that is quite the highest percentage we've had, but that is pretty high. And, you know.
But he's the MVP right now.
Is he in first?
Got 7 MVPs.
I believe he is #1 at this point in time.
And I believe it was only Caps going behind because Nukdak didn't get it yesterday.
No one can catch him. Congratulations,
Congratulations, Self-Made.
Kia, how does that even... Kia King, I don't know, like the Kia player of the game for all the games. There you go.
Is he getting a car?
You said that. Right, let's move on. Origin, they have their eyes set on second place and a spot in Rotterdam, but in their way stand the UK lads of XL Esports, looking to close out their first LEC split with a bang. We will be right back.